Welcome, everybody, to a new analysis of Tradomics. My name is Dario, and in this episode, we're going to have a look at the main stocks that are listed on the semiconductor industry. So let's start with the Philadelphia Semiconductor Index that is going to give us a little bit of an understanding on where the different companies listed on this index are. So first of all, according to the last analysis, I was flagging two candles. The first one was the top. It was done on the 22nd of January 2025, and I was saying that in case that or this candle was broken, we could have acted more rally to the upside. Um, the other flip of the coin was this low that was made on the 28th of January. And I was saying that in case this low was broken to the downside, we could have had further downtrend. Which of the two situation we are? Well, we are on the second one because thanks to the candle of Friday and even before the candle of Thursday, we broke up this low here at $4,776. So here I can update the chart by saying that this top represents the beginning of an upward cycle that is more than a T plus 2. Eventually it's a T plus 3, but even a T plus 4. So this T plus 3, T plus 4 um, is made of the first upward cycle that lasted 19 bars. So we have a T plus 1 here. B weekly cycle 19 bars is a duration encompassed between 13 to 22 days. So it's a B weekly cycle. And now we are on the second B weekly cycle. Regarding the downward cycle, though, here we have to make an important consideration. So first of all, this cycle, downward cycle, is a negative cycle because the low in which it ended is lower compared from the low to which it started. We have 22 bars, not 23 because we have to take the last one before the absolute lows here, 22 bars. So this is a maximum duration of a T plus 1. Okay, bi-weekly cycle, excluding hybrid cycles that are an hybrid between a bi-weekly cycle and a monthly cycle, and they happen seldomly. So let's take this reference as a T plus 1. So this cycle is negative. But what is also important to note is that this low here is lower compared to this one. Okay, the candle that was done on the 27th of November 2024. This means that we have a 3 months downward cycle that is turned into a negative cycle. And the duration of this T plus 3 has reached, let's see, 61 days. What does it mean? It means that we have enough time to close this T plus 3, so this 3 months cycle, but we still have time until 89 bars to prolong the downtrend because now the cycle is turning into a negative one. Therefore, every extension of the cycle for the rules of the T cycle analysis will follow the pathway to the downtrend. So in the worst case scenario here, we can have a downtrend or prosecution of the downtrend until 7, 8 of April. And this cycle here, it might be not just a simple T plus 1, but it can be also T plus 2. So this is to flag you up that there is a possibility by mid of next week to have a bounce back to the upside, but then potentially a return to the absolute lows. It's something that might happen, but still here we have time even to close the T plus 3. Okay, so by beginning of next week, we foresee more trend to the upside because we have to start a new T, at least a T or a weekly downward cycle. And we can also start closing the first T plus 2. Okay, so the closing of a T plus 2 means that we will need at least 3 4 red green candles um, that will follow this pathway to the upside. So we have reached 27 bars. So we can, if we want to have a median duration, then we can start already from next week. But the most important thing by mid or end of next week will be to monitor this low here, because if this low will be broken to the downside, then we can potentially continue the downtrend to close this T plus 3. Okay, so that's the situation we have on the Philadelphia Semiconductor Index. So the duration is that we have now enough time to start even a T plus 3 eventually, or a T plus 4, because if we gauge the duration from this low here on the 3rd of August until Friday's candle, we have 143 bars. But we can have also a beginning of the year that can be one for the first 3 month cycle, then the second 3 month cycle, and the third 3 month cycle. So we cannot say that we will have a yearly cycle that is done by a first 6 month cycle and another 6 month cycle. We have the condition at the moment to do both, but as I said, by mid or end of next week, we have to monitor this low, because if this low will be broken down, then we will have further downtrend. Otherwise, if we will start going over the stop, then we will have more trend to the upside. In any case, beginning of next week until let's say Monday/Tuesday, we will need to see at least 1 or 2 candles that are higher compared to this low. And actually, if you take the total duration from this low here, that was the beginning of the weekly cycle, until here, we have 11 bars. So 11 out of 11. So first candle of a new cycle, at least a weekly cycle. Then let's see how many candles there will be after, and whether we will reach the stop or not. So now, after the index analysis, let's start with the companies in focus. The first company is Nvidia. So in the last analysis, I was saying that given the fact that this low was a T plus 2, and this cycle was already in a negative move or negative situation, we could have had potentially other extension of the downtrend. So we have had actually this sequence of candles, and then a bounce back to the upside, as for the arrow that I left. So here now we can update the chart. The total duration of this T plus 2 has been 31 bars. Of course, this is a median duration, but we could have extended further the downtrend until 44 days. So I hope that the analysis has given you valuable insights, okay, because that was the risk. Median duration is not a maximum duration, therefore we had with 31 bars a little bit more than 50% possibilities to continue to the downtrend, and a little bit less of 50% possibilities to start a new bounce back to the upside. This latter was the option in which the market from the 4th of February 2025 was in. So here we had a nice bounce to the upside, and we could feel it completely, the gap down that was done on the 24th of January 2025, or no, even better, 27th January. And we also set up this top, and this top was the beginning of the T+2. In fact, if we gauge now the total duration from the beginning of the T+4 until this top, 14th of February, we have 27 bars. So as for the index, we have had the first T+2, and now we are on the second T+2. Actually, on the index, we were on the T+1, but Nvidia started this T+4 a little bit before than the index. So here we have already time to say this is a T+2, and here the T+4 is confirmed. So this is a 6-month cycle. Now, we had this downtrend, harsh retracement, and we went lower the moving average to 100. Despite the earnings release was over the analyst estimation and was basically a nice one, then the candle after the earning release that was done on the 27th of February basically erased the entire gain that was done on the 26th of February, on the 25th of February, an engulfing bearish. So harsh move to the downside, but then on the 28th of February, we have the new candle of a new cycle. The new cycle is for the time being a weekly cycle, and if we gauge the duration from this last point in which the new T downward cycle was started, so here we have the new T weekly cycle. So 11 bar out of 11, so we are pretty sure that here we have a new weekly cycle in development, and therefore we can have some other bars that can push further the price to the upside. Now, an important thing is that we can by Monday, so by tomorrow, having already a netting of the moving average to 100. But in order to develop a weekly cycle, we are not obliged actually to push the price further to the upside. We can have some candles like this. And then if we have, for example, 4 candles without our harsh move of the price towards the upside, this will be enough to start a weekly cycle, or something that is even more than a weekly cycle. So let's see by beginning of next week whether we can have first of all the eating of the moving average to 200, and then whether the price will start going into other level of resistances like moving average 50 and moving average 21. So we have also to be careful, as I was saying, for the index, if by end of the next week we will not continue to get lower this low, because otherwise we will continue further to the downside, okay, for the remaining days. In terms of downward cycle, the situation is that, so here we have a new T+2, and this T+2 has reached so far a duration of 18 days. So the expectation is that from this low, we can not just have a weekly cycle, but even a bi-weekly cycle, okay? So we will have to monitor in order to continue the trend to the upside, particularly this top here, and also this one. Okay, so let's see in the next weeks whether we can reach at least this level at $135.01, because if we're gonna go higher this top, then we will have positive signals that from this low here we will have at least a T+1. Okay, so that's the situation I have on Nvidia, and let's move to the next one. The next company in focus is Intel, and I think here the arrows worth more than 1,000 words. But given that this is a video analysis, I have to say something, right? So in the last video, I was saying that this low potentially could have been the beginning of a T plus 5, but it was not given by fact that here we have a T plus 5 because we have this yearly downward cycle that is negative, and despite here we could have had the closing of the T plus 5 because the total duration of this negative cycle has been of 219 days, we could have had another T plus 4 that could be attached to this one in order to continue the downtrend. And this arrow here was to make you aware that we were not, we could have not been sure that this was a T plus 5, and therefore the expectation over the short term was to continue further to the downside, especially if this was a T plus 4. We could have gone lower than this low here at $18.51. So then what happened? It happened that we continue to the downside, but just for another candle. And this candle here was the minimum, the absolute low was done on $18.78. This low here was done at $18.73. So from a quantitative analysis perspective, this low was not lower compared to this low, and this low was not lower compared to this low. This is something I was saying also in the last video. So now potentially we have more evidence that from this low here we have a T plus 5 because we didn't return back to the absolute lows. Okay, so this structure might be detached from this cycle here that I was showing before. And I was also saying in the last video that if this is not a T plus 5, we could have returned to an area to have a hook to the upside in order to close the real T plus 5. I was also showing this arrow. And guess what happened? So according to my arrows, we had trend a bounce to the upside. And this first wing was broken down. Now, we have to update the chart, and therefore here I can say that we had a T plus 3 that was positive. Now, you have to be aware that a T plus 3 has been done, and this upward cycle here that is positive is enough to close a T plus 5. Okay, so the hook has been done. Now the question is, do we need to attach another cycle and return it to an area which is higher than a 27.55, or we can start a new yearly cycle from this top and starting going down? So because this is now the question, and of course the answer is that it's too soon to say which of the two options will be the real one, so the truth. So now we have to wait a little bit what the market is going to do, and in order to do that, what we can do is to start first of all having a look at the downward cycle from this low here. So from the low of the 13th of January 2025 until Friday's candle, we have had 32 bars. So this cycle is enough to close what? To close a downward T plus 2. Okay, so we have a median duration. Therefore, from the next week, we have a 50% possibilities to go up and 50% possibility to go down, because we have reached a median duration of a T plus 2, but we know that the maximum duration is 44 days and 32 days is exactly in the middle. Now, the thing is that we will need to, especially next week, to monitor whether the price will be not pushed back from the moving average to 100. Therefore, our first sign of strength will be to go higher the moving average to 100, which is now in is at $24.40. So we have to monitor this resistance, and also we have to monitor this first top if we want to return back to an area which is at 27.55. Be careful that here we have at least a T plus 2, T plus 3 in development. So this return back to the absolute tops will not be something that will immediately happen, because we will need again more time to spend on this area. And another important thing is that you have to monitor also these absolute lows, because in case the price will return in this area, well, here we cannot exclude 100% that this is a structure that is completely detached. It seems so far, but it will still start retracing further to an area which is at around 18, 17, $18. Then we will have to make further consideration. Okay, so that's the situation we have on Intel. This is enough to close at T plus 5, but we can also have another structure of this kind, because the time to have this move will be um, available until the next earning release. Um, at the earnings release, at the time of the earnings release, we will have 332 days, but we know that we can go up to 339, excluding Bayer tongue. So, as said in the last video, until the 5th of May 2025. On Oracle, on the chart, I was flagging this low as a possibility to break another cycle and continue the downtrend, but we have seen that the market has not broken this important swing. We were close to the moving average at 200, and now we are reacting a little bit far away from the moving average. Then we can update the chart. This was a negative downward cycle monthly T plus 2, ended with the candle on the 27th of January 2025 with a total duration of 24 bars. So here we can have the beginning of a new T plus 2. And this, as I said during the last analysis, this low, given that was not broken, might be also the beginning of what? Well, the beginning of a yearly downward cycle, because we have more than enough time to close the yearly cycle. We have 280 bars. It's true that we can close the T plus 5 at most at 339 bars, which will be a time that is can be stretched until the 22nd of April 2025. And in order to see whether from this top we will from this low, sorry, we will begin at T plus 5, then we have to reach at least these swings. Now, before the total duration of a yearly cycle, there is an earnings release. So either we start from this low to have a new T plus 5, or this will be a T plus 2, then we can have another cycle, and then the closing of the yearly T plus 5 cycle here. Okay, so we have a couple of ways to go through. Now, what we can say on the short term is that from that low until Friday's candle, we have had 22 bars. So here, the analysis is similar compared to what we have seen on the other stocks. So for the beginning of next week, we might foresee more uptrend because we need also to develop the new bi-weekly cycle. Okay, so Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, we can say that um, we forecast more green candles, and we will have to monitor already the stop. So if the stop will be broken to the upside, then here we will have a rising of a new structure. Analysis correct as for the last video, because here I was flagging the possibility to continue to go to the upside, and we have had, in terms of upward cycle, the closing of this weekly cycle here with the candle that was done on the 18th of February 2025. So we have had a first weekly upward cycle, a second weekly upward cycle, and the sum of a first and the second weekly cycle is what? Is a T plus 1. So from this top here, 18th of February, we have had a new T plus 1 upward cycle. So I'm going to update the chart accordingly. Oops, here. And this is what I can say for Oracle. So we are close to let's say we are close to closing a yearly cycle. If not, we will close it by mid end of April. But let's see if from in the next weeks we will have a more uptrend. Also, because if we gauge the total duration from the T plus 5 until Friday's candle, we have a 54 bars. So now we have also to close a T plus 3. And in order to close a T plus 3, we need an hook up. And this hook up, given that is a T plus 3, takes at least a week. So we need to have a bit pushed to the upside for at least a week if we wanted to close the T plus 3 by in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Okay, so we have for Oracle more focused for an uptrend rather than downturn, especially over the short term. On the mid term, we have to monitor this top as well as this one as well, which is at $189.10. On AMD, after the earning release that was positive, we have had a nice reaction of the price with this green candle, but then we followed further down and we signed absolute low at 106.50. We have had a recover of the trend, and this recover was important to close an upward cycle T plus 2. Um, Actually, if we gauge the duration from the top of the 7th of January until the top of the 20th of February, we have 28 days. But then another T plus 2 started with further push to the downside, and therefore we went even lower this swing. Um, Now, the thing is that, as said for the last video, how long the price can continue to fall. Well, we have reached with Friday's candle 335 days out of 339. So the answer is that we can have until 339 days to proceed to the downside, but then the time for the yearly downward cycle will be over. Therefore, we are close to a maximum duration of a T plus 5, and when a T plus 5 is over, we can have two possibilities. The first one is to start a new yearly cycle directly, or we can have a bear tongue. A Bayatong is an extension, a time extension of us with a cycle with a 3 degrees less in terms of time, therefore a T plus 2, that is encompassed between a T plus 5 and another T plus 5. Okay, so this, for example, is the shape of a double bottom, so a W restart. So you have to be aware that we might have also this possibility going forward, and this possibility takes between 24 and 44 days, which means that we can have an entire month of March, in which we can have a fake restart, then a return back to the absolute lows, and then the proper restart. So this is something that you need to be aware, but we can have also the possibility of a V-shape restart, which is simply we finish a downward cycle here and we start a new one. In that case will be a V shape. In which of the situation we will be or we are going to be, this is something that we cannot foresee at the moment. We know that we still need 4 days eventually to proceed to the downside and then have a reaction. Okay, so I would expect eventually from Monday onwards, um, first sign to a bounce of upside. We have also to start the new monthly candles, so I would not exclude, especially beginning of next week, to go even lower than the low that we have done on Friday at 98.79. Actually, another resistance point will be here at 93.12 eventually, so the price can also go down until this level. Okay, but then we will have to see whether we will have a reaction for either a Bayer tongue or the beginning of a new weekly cycle. Okay, but be aware that the the push to the upside for the next week might be not so strong, and a focus, a key resistance area is $93.12. Last but not least, we have Broadcom. So the Friday's candle of Broadcom was the low of the candle was lower compared to the low from which potentially a T plus 2 has started at $196.23. So this cycle here is a negative cycle and is supposed to be a T plus 2. The total duration of this T plus 2 is at 22 bars. This means that we can continue after a bounce of a dead cat to proceed to the downtrend. Okay, like this and line like this. But looking at the chart, I have a doubt. And the doubt is that we have, it's true, there's a cycle, but technically speaking, this one looks even better because from this low here until this top here, this top broke up this top. And when a cycle start, ideally needs to broken some swings of reference in order to begin. Uh, it's not a standard, it's not a golden standard, but in the majority of the cases, this happens. So my doubt is that the T plus 2, whether the T plus 2 started here or started here. Because if the T plus 2 has started here, then the duration is more than enough to close definitely the T plus 2. And we have 32 days, which is a median duration. And this duration is in line with other stocks. And it's also in line with the NASDAQ. So looking at the indexes, this is why it's important always to have a look at the main index of reference as well as the Standard and Poor's and Nasdaq. I would tend also to not to exclude this low as the beginning of the T plus 2. And I tell you also this thing, given that from this top here, which is potentially the beginning of a T plus 4 or even a T plus 5, we have 49 days total duration. And from this top here, we have a duration of 24 bars. So what I'm expecting from this low here is to, first of all, by beginning of next week, to have another push to the upside. Okay, so that's the first thing. But the second thing is that this push to the upside can be, I would say, um, strong enough to eventually close a T plus 2, okay, upward cycle. But this will be true if the T plus 2 is here and not here. Okay, so the situation on Broadcom is not really clear, especially for the midterm. Over the short term, as for the other stocks, I would foresee more push to the upside, at least for the beginning of next week. The total duration of this 3-month cycle here has reached 61 bars, so it's a median duration. But of course, there is still time to have another cycle of this kind and reaching the moving average 200. Now, the thing is that on Thursday, we have the earnings release. So, so it's critical to, let's say, to understand a little bit what the future direction will be. It's critical to understand the beginning of next week whether we will have a nice push to the upside. So if the push to the upside before the earning release will even go higher than this top, then we will have a lot of chances to proceed to the upside and having this target at 241.91 fillet in case the earnings release will trigger more push to the upside. But in order to have that, let's say, clue, ideally, we before Thursday we will need to reach $219.25. Because otherwise, if this is a T plus 2, then it's a negative. Then for the earnings release, we will continue to go down. And the first target will be here at $184.38, which is also corresponding more or less to the moving average 200. So on Broadcom, I would say short term upside, but mid-term you have to be careful because the situation is not really clear and the market is not giving us, also for the quantitative analysis, some suggestion to be more in favor of the uptrend rather than the downtrend. Okay. Um, that's the situation so far on Broadcom as well. I hope this video has given you a lot of information. If you want to subscribe to the channel, feel free to do so, or even release a comment. And by subscribing to our channel, you will get notified as soon as possible regarding our analysis, because time matters in tradings and investment. Thanks for watching and see you to the next episode.